Update, Ada for asking my wife to choose between her family and ours. I realized today that it's been almost a month since I gave an official update. A lot has been going on, including Ellie's visit, a few breakthroughs in therapy, and trying to manage a household with a toddler with a serious medical condition. I'm still processing/working through a ton, but since Ellie was here, I had a little less need to process in public, as it were. But now she's gone back home and things are sort of shifting back to where they were before the seizure and CPS, except that I don't really feel like I'm looking at any of it the same way. Whether that's good or bad, I don't honestly know yet. We still don't have any real answers as to what's causing my son's seizures. But his new medication regimen has them more or less under control, and we're cautiously optimistic while still taking some extra precautions. So far, so good on that front. He's handling it all far better than either of his parents are, I can tell you that. I got a few comments in MSGS asking about whether I ever spoke to BAL after he reached out. We had a brief chat over coffee the day before Ellie arrived. He and I have never been close. He is or was the golden child son-in-law and we have absolutely nothing in common, but, apparently, he still felt like it was his duty to warn me about some things, so I could be more prepared than he was. Turns out that my SIL has been financially abusive/controlling toward him for quite a while, and when he confronted her about a credit card that he didn't know she had opened, she went ballistic, and that was what led her to the bar and a guy she used to know, and it went from there. He didn't expand much on SIL's cheating, so I'm still not clear if it was a one-time thing or a long-term affair. Carrie's had conflicting answers, but really, he just wanted to give me a heads up so I could check our finances in case Carrie had been following her sister's lead in that regard. So, I did check. And that led to a blow-up in MC because I found some irregularities. No secret credit cards or anything like that. But Carrie's been spending considerably more than I realized, and some of that spending was actually giving, as in giving SIL cash that I suspect was her way of paying for her cheating-related expenses so BAL wouldn't catch on. It didn't go particularly well when I called Carrie out on it during counseling, and it went worse when our therapist essentially took my side and gave her some tough love that was more tough than it was love. The phrases, family loyalty, she needed help, and you made the choice to get fired so I get to make the choice on how to spend my money, were all thrown around. To be fair, Carrie apologized later for everything she said, though she stopped short of apologizing for what she did, and her sister's cheating has become a bigger issue in MC than I ever thought it would. We've had 3 sessions since the blow-up and somehow they all keep circling back to the cheating and all are talking about what Carrie knew and what she didn't. Feels a lot like dancing around the possibility of her following in her sister's footsteps and the money stuff being the first step down that path. And that somehow always manages to lead right back to her original accusations against me, the ones that led to her mom snitching to my mom but then never following up with the truth. There were some commenters who suggested that Carrie might have been setting some kind of trap by inviting Ellie. I'm not going to say you were right, but, well, you were right. Sort of. It was more of a preemptive strike. See, I trust you, and look, I can still do things that suggest I might still love you. Move. As the day after Ellie left, Carrie broached the subject of how her mother telling my mother that I had cheated had played a role in my mom reporting me to CPS. There's a sentence I never thought I'd write. Basically, my wife asked me to be the bigger person, like she'd been by inviting Ellie, and to chalk that up to an innocent mistake on my MIL's part, and now that it was all water under the bridge because everyone knew the truth, maybe my MIL and I could have a sit down and try to bury the hatchet. I had like 6 good lines about where I might like to bury that hatchet, but I didn't actually use any of them, and that was in no small part to being too fucking shocked to hear it described as water under the bridge to find my voice. Carrie did her best to frame it as all of us moving forward for the kids, since it seemed like our son and daughter might soon only have one set of grandparents, assuming that I was going to go no contact with my parents. Someone asked on one of my other posts why it wasn't easy for me to just cut them off, and this turns out to be one of the big reasons. If I go no contact and Carrie and I stay together, then my entire family will be her family, and I think I've spelled out all the reasons that would be an incredibly bad idea for me. If I go no contact and Carrie and I divorce, then I've got no one except a best friend who is thousands of miles away and 2 kids who I'll only see some of the time. My therapist suggested that might have been my mom's plan all along, or at least a consideration, the idea that I'll roll over and forgive and continue to play my role because I'm incapable of being alone or standing up for myself. She took an action that was so insane because she fully believed there would be no consequences to it, at least not for her. Not to speak poorly of myself, but I have to admit that wouldn't have been an unreasonable calculation by my mother. And since I haven't officially gone no contact yet, she probably thinks that it's only a matter of time before I come crawling back. A month ago, she might have been right. But I've been digging down into everything related to my parents in therapy and doing all my homework, which has essentially been a lot of journaling, some of which ended up as a Reddit post, and talking to my inner child and confronting the pain without actually confronting the people who caused it. Turns out that all my posting on here was me doing some of that in terms of my marriage, even though I didn't realize it at the time. And that, it seems, is a pattern, me not realizing things. While Ellie was here, she and I talked a lot and she pointed out some things, in much less gentle ways than my therapist does, that I hadn't noticed, some patterns that exist in my relationships with my parents and with Carrie. Ellie described them as patterns of neglect, at best, and patterns of abuse, at worst. I pushed back and resisted that, at first. But when I shared it with my therapist, expecting her to agree with me, she guided me into considering it a light I hadn't thought of before. She asked me, point blank, who the person I trust most in the world is, Ellie, and then she asked me if I trusted her that much. Why wasn't I trusting her judgment? Why was I fighting so hard against everything Ellie was trying to tell me? My answer, because Ellie's supposed to be on my side, so, of course, she'd see it all in a way that made me look good or like the victim, so how could I trust such a clearly biased opinion? And then my therapist asked me if I felt so strongly that I couldn't or shouldn't trust a biased or self-serving opinion, then why was I so dead set on trusting Carrie's opinion or my mother's? I had no good answer for her. Hell, I had no answer at all for her. And I still don't. But I need to find one, as that's my therapeutic homework for next session, to try and find a reason that I can actually defend for why I will just accept my wife or my mom's views of me without question, but refuse to consider that my best friend might see things more clearly than either of them do. I've been working on it since Tuesday morning, and so far I've got nothing, which, I suspect, is the point. That's where I'm at, if anyone still cares. And I do want to say thank you to everyone who reached out with comments or messages on my other posts, especially those who shared experiences with their own families. I haven't ever really talked about any of this before, so it's helped a lot to hear that I'm not unique, and while that's depressing to an extent, why can't we have nice families? It's helping me to feel slightly less anxious about it all. I know I don't reply to messages, but I read them all and they mean more than you know. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. The thing with abuse is that it forms your own view of self. If it keeps happening, maybe the issue is you, and other lies of that nature. And it is much easier to believe a well-established false narrative than to accept a new one. Ellie is a good friend and your therapist has your back. In my opinion, it is better to have no one, or only 1 or 2 people, rather than a bunch of people who harm you. You can come back from this and have a beautiful life with people who see your worth and what you have to offer. But it requires the courage to leave that enemy you know. Abuse also makes us afraid that all the future could be as dark, but that's just not true. I remember my therapist asking me to imagine a better world on the other side of leaving my marriage, even though it would cost me everything. It took another year from that point, but I did it. And oh, the life that awaited me. I regret nothing. I'm more whole now than ever before. I was able to move away and heal from from the marriage stuff and the family stuff, but it does take courage. OP's response. My therapist asked me to do something similar, to imagine what I'd like my life to look like in a year. I honestly couldn't answer her with anything other than, not like this. But you're right, the devil I know is less scary than the unknown future. And I haven't quite figured out how to reconcile that yet. Commenter 2. Dude, try and learn to be okay with being alone or / and find some new local friends. Because your circle sucks right now. You deserve better than you have, and with more support your wife and family are going to have to do better by you than they have been. Also, I applaud all the hard work you're doing and am proud of how you're dealing with this shitty situation. Seriously, be proud of yourself and keep it up. Commenter 3. I haven't commented on your posts before. I wanted to do so, but I didn't have anything nice to say about the people you love. But I'm going to say it now. Your wife is manipulative and abusive. You made a stupid mistake. You've put the work in to make it not happen again. Your wife, in-laws, and parents are withholding love. That's abuse. Dude, you are doing all the work in all your relationships. It won't always be 50-50, but it can't withstand 90-10. You deserve better. Your kids deserve to see happy parents. And if that means separate, then so be it. OP's response. Honestly, I'm not even sure my parents are withholding love anymore. I'm not entirely sure they're capable of it. Commenter 4. Might I suggest having your therapist and your wife in your next marriage counseling session eliminate the phrase, you chose to get fired. Either she's forgiven you for the loss of your job because you've gotten a new one, or she hasn't, but holding it over your head every time you'll have a disagreement is manipulative and nasty. Forgiveness means you don't bring it up anymore. Commenter 5. You wrote that if you leave Carrie then you will only have a best friend and your kids. Have you considered the possibility that this is already the case? OP's response. Yes. Longer answer, I have discovered / been diagnosed with issues surrounding permanence. Like, I'm terrified to do anything because I feel like it can't be undone, as if every action changes things irrevocably, and so I become a totally inactive participant in my own life. So even though I don't really know if I still have a wife, especially after the last few days, I can't bring myself to pull the trigger because then there's no going back. Which makes no damn sense, I'm aware. Commenter 6 in response. Oh no, have things gotten worse since the last update? OP's response. Yeah, still kind of trying to figure my way through it in my head, and didn't want to drop an update in less than a week, so I more or less stayed off it until I replied today.
Wiredibus here. It honestly sounds like his relationships aren't improving, but it sounds like therapy is actually going pretty good for him. Hopefully he has that breakthrough that helps him change up his situation. Hoping for a better update in the future from this guy. Hope things turn around and improve for him.